This Golf Smart insight is understanding tennis and golfer's elbow. So obviously, if you have some pain, go get it checked out by a medical provider. I'm going to say that probably 4 or 5 times during this video because I don't want you to watch this video and think you understand everything that's going onto your personal situation. But there's a lot of golfers, and we've had a couple questions about, well, what's going on? I've been told I have golfer's elbow or tennis elbow. What can I do to fix it? So I'm going to help you understand kind of what's going on with golfers or tennis elbow, how to differentiate the two, a couple things that you can work on technically, but I want to say it one more time, make sure you go see a qualified medical provider, go through the physical therapy, make sure that you clean up the imbalance in the forearm as well as the imbalance in the shoulder and neck that could be contributing to it. Okay, so golfer's elbow, tennis elbow is an overuse injury of either the extensor muscles, which will connect to the outside of the elbow, or the flexor muscles, which will connect to the inside of the elbow. The easiest way that I've learned to remember, is it golfer's or is it tennis elbow, was actually from another golf pro, Dave Phillips. If you look at the inside, this is your medial epicondyle, and you'll see that even on most hairy men, the inside of the forearm is going to be relatively smooth, like a golf ball. Golfer's elbow is an inflammation or an overuse injury of the tendon where all these flexor muscles connect to the medial epicondyle. Tennis elbow, on the other hand, is the outside, which is where most men have hairy arms. So just like the tennis ball is fuzzy, the outside of the arm is fuzzy. Tennis elbow is more the extensors where they connect to the lateral epicondyle. So one way that you can experience the difference between the two movements is if you put the movements that exacerbate this pattern, if you were to put your hands just above the two bony parts, those are the epicondyles, if you flex your wrist, you'll feel this muscle activate, or this group of muscles activate. If you extend your wrist, you'll feel this group of muscles activate. What ends up happening is, if it's more the tennis elbow, it's going to be more an overuse of the extensors. Now that could either be from overusing this movement or from decelerating this movement, which is why it's a little tricky to just diagnose through video. The same thing is if I'm overusing the inside here, it could be from actively doing this movement or from resisting this movement. So it's not that one particular release is going to cause golfer's elbow and one particular release is going to cause tennis elbow. In fact, the more common thing that I've experienced with working with golfers is grip pressure is going to have a higher influence as far as whether you're going to get tennis or golf elbow than any of your release styles. Because what will happen is as you're getting close to impact, if you have a lot of pressure and you're kind of creating a lot of tension in your forearms in an attempt to square the club face or to prevent the club face from turning over, that added resistance is what's going to relate or contribute to this inflammation process. So grip pressure is one of the #1 things that you want to try to work on if you're battling one of these two scenarios. If you want to make sure that you have light grip pressure in transition, and you want to make sure that you have light grip pressure through the release. If you feel like you are holding on for dear life, doesn't matter how much physical therapy you do, when you go back to swinging, it's going to come back up. The second one would be overuse from practicing on mats. So the mats do not have nearly as much give as the ground outside, and frequently tennis elbow, golfer's elbow is going to develop as a result of slamming the club into the ground, again with this increased grip pressure. You rarely see the tennis elbow, golfer's elbow situation on people who are just kind of keeping a relatively soft forearm as they're working through the ball. So that's the #1 thing to work on. You can remove the stress to give it some rest by not hitting off of mats. And then the third piece would be looking at the release pattern. So the two common ones you'll see will be higher handicap amateurs tend to get golfer's elbow on the right arm, but the more common is to get tennis elbow on the lead arm from doing more of a chicken wing and more of a kind of scoop release, kind of like this. Ideally, the release should have a little bit more of a rotational stabilizing component than a flexion extension stabilizing component. If you work too much in this flexion extension, then you are running the risk of developing this overuse pattern, especially if you have some fascial restrictions going on through your neck, through your shoulder, that contribute down to these forearm issues. So if you've been told that you have golfer's elbow, tennis elbow, get plenty of rest, get the inflammation down, do the soft tissue work to try to rebalance it, do the strengthening exercises to try to rebalance it. But then when you come back to golf, you have to work on decreasing your grip pressure, avoiding really steep contact, get off of mats, at least temporarily until you've got it completely resolved. And then third, working on your release style so that it's not so much of a bracing flexion extension, but it's more of a smooth rotation. That little recipe tends to work really well for getting people out of the long-term problem pattern that can be tennis elbow or golfer's elbow. So even if you don't have golfer's elbow or tennis elbow, but you want to understand your swing more, head over to golfsmartacademy.com, check out our membership program where you can submit a swing and we'll tell you what's going on in your transition or your release or any other key issue that you're trying to solve with your game.